Hello everyone, I'm Ankit and you're watching StudyIQ IAS English. In our today's video, we'll try to understand why is Komagata Maru, a ship that traveled nearly 100 years back to Canada, in news currently. Now the reason is very simple. In its second appearance on an American show known as The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, Punjabi pop star and movie star Mr. Diljit Dosanjh spoke about 1940 Komagata Maru incident. In this incident, nearly 376 Indian passengers they were denied entry into Canada owing to some racist immigration rules. Now these passengers, you'd be surprised to know, they were forced to stay on the ship for nearly 2 months and they were denied even basic necessities when they arrived into Canada like food, medical aid, water, etc. So this is a very source of big grievance in the state of Punjab and it formed a very big part of India's national movement against the British colonial rule. So we'll try to understand this event, how it fits into the larger scheme of India's national movement, that is freedom for struggle. Now the notes which I will be using for our today's session, you can also download them by going to a Telegram channel called as ATS Live, and while you're at it, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel also. So let us first start by understanding what was Komagata Maru. Now Komagata Maru, also known as Guru Nanak Jahaz, was a Japanese steamship which was chartered in Hong Kong by Gurdeep Singh Sidhu. Now this steamship, it sailed to Vancouver in 1914 carrying as many as 376 Indians, out of which 340 of them belonged to Sikh. Now these men, they were mostly farmers, formal soldiers and laborers who were dressed in Western attire and they were trying to fit into Canada. So why were they traveling to Canada? Now the reason was they hoped for securing better wages in order to support their families who were facing hardship back in India, right? So this ship sailed in April and nearly after 90 days of voyage, they reached Vancouver on May the 23rd. Now what happened when they reached Vancouver and the ship docked in Burand Inlet? Only 24 of the passengers out of 376 were allowed to deboard because they had the requisite permission from the Canadian authorities. And on the other hand, Canadian authorities created a blockade for most of the people who were aboard. They were even denied basic necessities like food, water and medical aid. And by the time, till mid-July, this situation became very volatile. Now on July the 19th, more than 100 policemen and immigration officials from Canada, they tried to forcefully enter into the ships and they were denied by the passengers who fought back using whatever they could secure, iron rods, etc. Right, so situation became very tense by the month of July 1914. Now in response to this situation, the local South Indian community in Canada, they formed a shore committee which was led at that time by Hussain Rahim. Now this committee was able to manage to raise $20,000, which was enough to keep the charter of this ship ongoing, and they also tried to fight the authorities through legal means. But eventually, after failing to secure their entry into Canada legally, the ship was resent back to India. Now, why were these people denied access to Canada? You must be thinking Canada at that time was also ruled by British. So, India and Canada both being British ruled territories, why weren't Indians allowed in Canada? Now, Indians who went on the ship basically were of the opinion that since both India and Canada were under British rule, that they had the right to settle within British territories. But before their entry in 1914, few years back in 1908, Canada had passed what was known as a continuous journey regulation. Now this regulation of the immigration that the Canadian authorities had passed, it tried to prevent entry of those people who were traveling from their source countries, that is the country of their birth and citizenship, indirectly into Canada, right? So those people, like those Indian people, they did not travel to Canada directly from India. Rather, they chartered a ship from Hong Kong, which was not a part of British India territory. Now, why did Canada bring such a regulation in the first place? Now, this came after 1907 riots which happened in Canada, and this riot was basically had an racist character because it tried to exclude those people who were not white from entering into Canada. So this regulation basically tried to prevent people who had begun their journey very far off from the Canada, and at that time direct journey was not possible, so stopover would be necessary. So cleverly the Canadian authorities want to deny entry of people like Indians, Chinese and Japanese directly into Canada, and that is why this regulation affected Indian people who traveled to Canada not directly but via Hong Kong. Now you need to understand what happened after this ship returned to India. Now after being forced out of Vancouver, this ship was again denied harbor into other ports like Hong Kong and Singapore. And the reason behind that was, at that time World War I had begun, and the British authorities were very afraid of the fact that the anti-colonial sentiments that were harboring in many of the British territories would hurt them, right? Now, when this vessel came back to India, it harbored in the Budge port of eastern Hooghly region, and the authorities tried to take the passengers off and tried to put them into a train which would take them directly to Punjab. Now, these people already had more than 3 months into the journey. They were not given the basic needs, and that is why the passengers refused to deboard and they began their march into Kolkata. And as a result, the authorities and the troops fired on them, killing as many as 20 people and injuring several others. Now, Gurdeep Singh Sandhu, although escaped but later surrendered after Mahatma Gandhi asked him to do so, and he was imprisoned for 5 years because of this particular reason. Now, how did this incident impact Indian national movement? You need to understand, this incident proved to be a massive trigger for recruitment of organizations like Ghadar Party. Now, it convinced many people living in India and overseas and outside India that British subjects had no rights, and only the armed revolution is possible if they have to regain their dignity back. Now, this also underlined what was called as a contradiction in the British rule. On one hand, Indian people were asked to fight for British cause in the World War I, and on the other hand, the same very Indian people were denied access to other British colonies like Canada. So this opened the eyes of Indians that the British rule was not in their interest but only for the interest of Britishers and its British government. Similarly, this incident also marks a very big turning point for Indo-Canadian relations. You need to understand, for the past one and a half decade or so, Indian-Canadian relationship have been on downward spiral. And in 2016, then Canadian Prime Minister issued a formal apology for this Komagata Maru incident on their House of Commons. So this is how this particular incident of 1914 fits into the larger scheme of Indian national struggle. It opened the eyes of Indians that Indian subjects of the British Empire did not have equal rights to enter other British colonial territories, and it led to emergence of Ghadar Party, which played a very important role in organizing Indian interests, especially in the western coast of the American continent, right? Now, before we move on to a practice question which has appeared on exact same topic that we discussed, there's an important announcement. The topic that I just covered is an important part of modern Indian history. In addition to modern Indian history, you also need to cover ancient, medieval history, art and culture for prelims, as well as post-India's independent history and world history for mains purposes. In addition to history, there are other important subjects as well. Now, teachings for all the subjects that you necessarily required to clear UPSC exam is undertaken in resolution batches. These resolution batches are offered separately for students looking to prepare for this exam in 2027 as well as 2028. So do not forget to take admissions there. If you apply this code ATS Live, you're going to get maximum discounts on all the courses, be it 2027, 2028 or even optional batches, right? So do not delay, take the admissions as soon as you can and get on the path which will enable you to clear this exam whenever you want, right? Now, this is the question that appeared in 2014. Ghadar was what? The answer is simple. Do let me know in the comment section. What do you feel about this incident? Especially if you have read this, do let me know. Do you agree with my conclusion that it played a big role in getting cadres for Ghadar movement or not? Okay, so this is all for today's discussion. And if you want to download the notes, you can go to a Telegram channel called as ATS Live. If you have trouble locating this channel, just scan this QR code. You will find the channel on the Telegram. This is all from my side for today. Please have a very good night. We'll see each other again tomorrow.